Hello, viewers. Sometimes we have to discuss the hard stuff. On the 21st of July last year, it was a Friday, Eddie Kinuthia was stabbed, and he died of those stab wounds. There was a season of mourning for the family, for the community, and the funeral that really was tears for everybody because a heart of the community has been killed. That was Eddie. It's just been Eddie's birthday, and the family and the friends have gathered together to celebrate a life lost. And the questions are now big questions on 6 months down the line after Eddie's death. Where are we going with this? For some people, they might have taken their life back. But for the family, life has never been the same again. We saw in the Somerset Police, the mother to Eddie, Irene, has reached out to the community. And as UKENTV, we know it's time we really reached out and we come to speak to Irene. Irene, thank you so much for even agreeing to do this with us, because I know it must be very hard for you. A little bit, tell us, how are you feeling right now?
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate you taking your time to come and talk to us. It's really difficult. It's difficult to find the right words to express what it's like trying to get used to this life now without Eddie. He's in everything, every thought, every waking moment, every night, every dream. You know, he's in the routines that we used to do. He's just basically a complete part of us still. And it's kind of weird because obviously he is part of us, but he's not here in person. And it's not something that we can even begin to get used to. So it's a struggle.
It's a struggle for you. And many people don't realize that after the funeral, a lot of people's lives have gone back to normal. Before we even talk much about the death, what was Eddie like? You know, what kind of person was Eddie?
Eddie was vibrant. He literally was a really happy child. He was so loving, so kind, so, just a boy's boy. But then again, he is one of those boys who would see you and just give you the biggest smile, give you the biggest hug. He was just a joy, Growing up can be challenging, obviously, and especially in your teenage years. But that's the joy of being a parent. You kind of want to raise your children, you want to guide them, you want to lead them, you want to teach them. And you go through times when perhaps maybe they are rebellious, maybe times when it's difficult, but it's difficult growing up. Parenting doesn't come with a manual. Being a child or growing up doesn't come with it either. So it was a journey that we took together, and I loved every bit of it. Maybe not at the time when it was happening, like when you're disciplining and stuff like that, but, in general, Eddie was a really teachable child. And he'd be the one, like, you will tell him off over something and he will take it in and he will tell you, okay, Mom, I've heard. And he will show you that he's working on changing it. So I just miss that. I miss every part of it, or the parts which are between a mother and her children, and the parts which are the private things that you go through as a mother with your children. We've been through such difficulties, the challenges, even those.
It bonds you together, doesn't it?
Yeah, because they're all part of bringing up a family. I don't think any of it is supposed to be easy. It's just that when you're doing it, it's just what you do naturally. But now with Eddie gone, sometimes I feel as though, sometimes I even question, I'm like, so we went through all those challenges, and then to be cut off like that, it makes me feel sometimes as if, like I don't know what my job is, and I don't really know what my purpose is sometimes. And, you know, it takes a whole lot of self-encouragement to kind of go back into the thought that I do have children that I'm left with, and they still need a mom, but I'm broken. You know, some part of me is broken. And
On Irene, on that fateful Friday, walk us through that.
so I was at home that Friday, the evening, and actually it's kind of funny because I was meant to be working. I would work nights, and that day they called me. My work called me and told me that I owe them some. I mean, they owe me some hours. Basically, is what the girl called me and said, "Oh, you can take the night off today," and so I was at home, and I remember celebrating the fact that I get to have a night off. And then Eddie would have been in and out in the neighborhood, just like he would be, you know, like as a teenager, he would come in, he would go out, he'd come in, he'd go out. And so, you know, it would just, any normal Friday. I remember, I think I spent the whole day doing my niece's hair or something like that. I think I remember that's what I was doing in the daytime. And then, you know, that evening I was just sat down on the sofa with a cup of tea, watching telly, maybe on my phone scrolling, and then I had a knock on the door, and the girl just knocked the door, and she opened the door. I heard her right from the gate, and she screamed and said, "Open the door." And I went and opened the door, and as soon as I opened the door, she said, "Eddie's been stabbed." And I told him, "Where?" And I asked her, "Where?" She said, "I'll take you to him." She grabbed my hand, and we ran up the road to where he was, just a few yards from the house. And I got there.
The police arrived, or you?
No, at the time when I got there, they said, you know, some people were on the phone to the police, some people were on the phone for the ambulance. So there was a lot of people making the calls for the emergency services. And
So you could see Eddie on the floor.
he was on the ground, and there were some girls there trying to help him stop the bleeding. So they were telling him to stay awake and help is on the way. And then they just told me that he's been stabbed, but they couldn't really see where he was bleeding from. They could see that he was bleeding from somewhere below, like the bottom half of him. But he, you know, so it was really difficult to tell where he was bleeding from. So we tried to roll him over to try and see where he's bleeding from, and obviously try to stop the bleeding. I just came and I embraced him, and I was telling him to hang in there, encouraging him to wait. By this time, I was told the emergency services had arrived, at least the ambulance, but they couldn't come down because, you know, what I came to find out later was because it was like an active crime scene. They don't come down without knowing that their safety, you know, about their safety. So they were up the road, but not where we were. And so I just kept telling him to hang in there. They'll be there. Eventually, when they did come, they took over. And then they tried to help him. Subsequently, he had. And subsequently, he had lost consciousness. And then the ambulance, they worked on him for quite a bit there. And then they transported him to the hospital. And then I, you know, took a different transport and joined them there. But sadly, you know, after about an hour, they said that they couldn't save him. They came and told me the news.
And that's, for any mother, nobody want to hear that. You had a lot of support from the community at that time. Did you know that Eddie was that popular with the people, older, younger, and all that? Because that season of preparation for his funeral, you received a lot of support. Talk to me through how you feel Eddie was part of the community.
I'd go even from that day, because that day there had been like an event that was happening outside the shop where he was. And so there was a lot of children, like rather teenagers or children his age, the youth basically, and they literally came to the hospital. All of them came to the hospital, and they literally like just flooded into the A&E department because they thought that they could come and help him. So the love that they had for him I saw it right from the beginning, you know, where they came out. They thought that he was going to make it, or we all thought. I never, for 1 minute, I never for 1 minute thought that he was going to, you know, he wasn't going to survive. I never. And so when it happened, I think I was numb, you know. And then when I came out of the car park and all the children were there, I just went around and gave them hugs. It's like I don't know who that person was in that day, because I remember staying calm and then breaking down. They were broken. They were in floods of tears. But I almost held back. And then at some point, then I later broke down when one of, you know, my friend came up. My family came as well. And it was just a shock, because I think that when my family were on their way to the hospital, you know, is when you make a phone call and say, this has happened. And they all drove out and tried to get there. But then when they got there, you know, so I was there, obviously, immediate with the emergency services. But then some, like my sisters, when they arrived, it had already happened. So it was like a matter of breaking the news to them. And, you know, there's just no way of explaining what that's like, you know, for me to tell them, or I don't even know who told them, because in that moment, like, everything just broke, everything fell apart, and, you know, like, we were in pieces. And so when the kids found out, I think they found out because someone from inside had, you know, like, I think conveyed the message that that's what happened. And by the time I came out, they were all, you know, like, they were sat on the pavement. They just were beside themselves. You know, they've walked with us through the journey. Most of the youth, obviously, and the community, the Kenyan community, they just literally came around us and surrounded us and carried us through the most difficult journey of trying to plan a funeral. And they've been there, you know, they've been there, and in particular his friends, because they really loved him. I mean, I think it's clear for me to see, and it's clear for my family to see how much they really loved him, you know, and how broken they are, and how, you know, their whole life has fallen apart as well. So I'm not the only one that's grieving. You know, there's a lot of young kids there, or rather a lot of youth grieving, but also the shock and the trauma of something like this happening to someone that you've grown up with, and someone that you know, and that's someone that you care about. You can't get back to normal. You can't. It's just something that you cannot recover from. So
I'm just looking at the few days ago, Eddie's birthday.
yeah.
And the young people have gathered together and they have done something spectacular. Mm-hmm. In his memory, like, he's here today. They give their best to that. Mm-hmm. I mean, to them, they're still feeling like Eddie should be here. Eddie should be here. And I think that as well is taking a toll on their life as much as it's taking a toll in your life. Mm. How would you like things to be different right now? Because you're a grieving mother. Mm. You have other children you're bringing up, yes. But for Eddie, as much as the funeral is finished, most people go back to their lives. They don't understand the struggles you've been going through. Mm. I saw the appeal you did in the Somerset Police. Mm. That was very strong of you to go through that. Why this outreach to the community? What would you like to tell the community?
I think it's because as much as the police would like to help, or they are working hard on the case, as much as they are working on the case, they hit like a roadblock. We almost come close, but not close enough, because there's this roadblock of where people might know something, but they just don't think that it will help the case, or they think that it's not relevant, and that's where they stop. And I'm just hoping that talking to people more and more will get them to see that. Perhaps maybe if you talk with, instead of deciding that it's not worth saying, just say it. Whatever it is that you've heard out there and it feels like it could mean something and you're not sure, just tell the police, because they know what they're doing. They've been investigating cases. That's what their job is. And I'm just hoping that talking to people will get them to see that it might not be relevant to you, or it might not seem like it will make a difference to Eddie, but it will. I just want to say Eddie's name because the love that I have received because of Eddie would be the love that he put out there. And so his legacy is most definitely about love and kindness and the joy that he had. And all of those people who've spoken about Eddie, they've said, how it felt like a light had been put out.
Yes.
And it's not just a light how you say, somebody walks in and lights up a room. Is literally someone who lights up a whole community, because he interacted with a lot of people, not just the youth or people his age. He interacted with older people. I've had other people come to me and say, your son was such a joy, and he'd helped people even who are not related to him, people who are older. I literally met a guy the other day who said that he was there at Eddie's 18th birthday, which he did, and he was telling me that he this much time gone, and he still can't get over it. He says he still can't believe it. So I think for the youth, it's just a thing of when I see them, I see him, but also I see how they are struggling to make it real. It's almost as if Eddie's gone on a trip. Somehow it seems to me that they look at it as if Eddie's gone on a trip somewhere. It's like he's going to come back. And then it makes me sad, because I know I've felt that many times over these past few months, where you're trying to get your mind to come to terms with the fact that he's gone. But sometimes I'm praying and asking God, can you just bring him back? Like even today when I was driving and I was saying, I miss his voice and I miss his presence. I was like, like praying and saying, I just wish I could hear his voice even one more time. And so I watch these kids and I see their pain, and I'm just thinking, when I was talking to the police that day, when the liaison officer asked me if I would like to say something for his birthday, and I stayed up late into the night, like in the middle of the night, writing a statement. And it just came to me that there's a parent out there who knows something. There's a friend out there who might know something. It's not only going to help me when we find justice for Eddie, but it's going to help these children or this generation that we're with understand just how precious life is. It's going to perhaps make a difference when somebody sees how human, even the perpetrators of this, when they see that what you do completely breaks somebody else's soul by taking a life. Because I love Eddie, I love him just the same way that I've always loved him. But I'm broken because of what somebody else did, in an instant, you change somebody's life completely. You destroy somebody's life. So this not only goes out for the appeal for justice, but also for the young people and this generation to see that taking a life destroys lives. It doesn't just cut off a life that had hope, that had aspirations, that had dreams, that had a purpose. It doesn't just destroy that. It destroys so many other lives after that. And it's like a domino effect. It's like an endless thing where everything just is never going to be the same again. So
It can never be the same again, because a life has been lost and justice has not been done. But there's a code of silence, because somebody knows something.
they do.
Somebody knows Who killed Eddie?
I have this conviction in, I feel it inside of me. Like, I don't know why I feel it inside of me, but I feel in my mind and in my heart, I completely believe that somebody is holding on to something. And they might be worried, like, like young people might be worried, like, what happens if I talk to the police? Or older people who might be like part of their family, they're thinking, oh, I can't betray my nephew, or I can't betray my son by handing them over. But it's just them taking responsibility for what they have done. And, if as a society we can change that, then perhaps maybe it will go a step towards maybe making these kids think twice before you take a life, right? If we go to work towards a place where they get far more serious repercussions for these actions, then maybe it can make somebody think, it's not worth taking a life. Because
even somebody knew something before, they could have saved his life as well, because they could have shared something to save his life.
It's the aspect of, or the sense that we're never going to know, because I have these endless questions of why, was there something that I missed? Was there something that he might have known that he didn't say, but he didn't tell me, If there was that, and if somebody knew something and they didn't say something, then, even that can help, because then they can track back and go back and investigate and see whether it can be helpful to what has already happened now.
They shouldn't make a decision that is not useful. Let the police decide, like,
Definitely.
whatever information they give right now. And, we've normalized grieving for, murder cases like this. And people will grieve, people will bury, and they go back to their life as if, like, Eddie's just gone. And that is the bit we want to say today. Like 6 months down the line, we're looking for answers. And what you're saying as a parent, you're not stopping until you find the answer, right?
I'm going to keep going, because I think that he deserves somebody to keep talking on his behalf. Nobody deserves to go out the way he did. But then, like you say, it becomes like almost normal. It's a society where it happens, and then we go through this season, and then over time it's just forgotten, and then it happens again, and then we start the cycle all over again. But these are lives that are being taken, and these are hopes that are being crushed. These are families that are being broken. These are dreams that are being cut short, and it just needs to change. And I just think that I would like Eddie's memory to be the beginning of change, the beginning of where this generation start to think, somebody was loved and somebody was loved, and maybe that can make a difference for somebody. It can make a difference for a family. And if perhaps maybe finding the strength to talk for Eddie even reaches out to another family that have gone through a similar situation, if they haven't had a resolve, finding the courage to just keep trying, just keep fighting, just keep reaching out to people, just fighting for justice. And with hope and with faith, we can get there. That's what I hope for.
Has this experience really, like with the other children, with your family, do you find it difficult to be talking about Eddie to them, or does it come back over and over again? Has it affected your relationship and your day-to-day things you have to do with your family?
In some sense, because sometimes it's really hard to talk. There are instances when I just find it really difficult to talk. And, I know for a fact that my older son finds it really difficult to talk, and he kind of pulled back, even with his friends. So I know it's really affected him, especially for young men. They don't really reach out. But for me, I decided that I needed the help, so I sought counseling, and I've had been going to see a psychologist over the last, over the whole time. Like every other week, I go and sit down and talk to this lady, and it's helpful sometimes, and sometimes it's not. It's almost as if sometimes I feel like it's good to put it out there and to offload, and then sometimes it feels like it's just kind of it's like a revolving door where I'm opening this door over and over again, and so I just thought I have to do something, because if I don't do anything, I'm getting to a place where I feel like, why am I living? Why do I get to wake up every day when my little boy doesn't? I've had those days, and it's a difficult thing to actually address, even for me, where, the guilt that I feel for feeling like not continuing, when I'm a mom, and, it's the guilt of admitting that, because obviously it would feel like I'm ready to neglect my other children just because I'm struggling to cope. But then it's a thought that I can't control sometimes. And yeah, so it's a difficult journey, obviously I had joy, my whole life.
I know you have been a very happy girl. I know you. I know.
Yeah, so, I love being a mom. Yeah, and even with the challenges and the difficulties of being a mom, and the challenges of
The challenges are actually, that's, yeah. It's most families that who have got boys, even girls, are probably going through the same issues you've gone through. That's growing up.
Yeah, the personal thing for me as being a mother of 3 boys. They are my pride and joy, and for me to have to admit that some days I'm like, so why do I get to wake up in the morning? Comes with a lot of guilt, because I think that, the easiest way would be if I don't get up in the morning, if I don't do anything, if I just hide away in my bed. But then who's going to look after my children? They need me. So I just wish that these people can understand what that means and what it has meant for me, what he has meant for us as a family. I just wish that for their families who might know something, they can understand what that means for me, what that means for my children, and for the other, for my wider family, what that means for my nephews and my nieces. The little kids, they just write Eddie's name on pieces of paper. Sometimes they write it on the back of their hand. Sometimes they just...
That's their coping, isn't it? That's their coping method.
Their coping mechanism, I know some of his friends who've had tattoos, and, some of them, like, they'd print out, like, the T-shirts or the tops, but to see someone go to the extent of having a tattoo of his name on their body. But then for our little children, like my son, the younger one, and my niece, they just they scribble their name on the back of their hands, like on an almost daily basis. Is when you see them come back from school with that, it means that it would have been something that they've been thinking about when they're at school. And I think that for them, it's just for them to feel like he's with them, And, in a family setting, you're not going to be with each other 24/7. So it's not like I'm saying that we were in each other's faces or in each other's space 24/7, even for the kids. It's just that the things you take for granted. You have times when you're together in the morning, you have times when you're together in the evenings doing the routine, and then you have other parts of the day when you're doing your own thing. But I think the difference is for them now, the fact that they know he's not going to come back at the end of the day. He's not going to come back at bedtime to do the routine. And so that's why they probably write his name down, because maybe in some sense it makes them feel like he's close. So I'd said to the little one and his older brother as well, I said to him, he's with us all the time.
Even though you're not convinced yourself, you've got to have the strength for them.
Yeah. It's not even that I'm not convinced because I feel like he is with me. It's just acceptance, accepting that that's the way it is. He is with me inside of my heart, but he's not going to be here with us at present. Like physically here, he's not going to be here physically. So it's just something that I tell them, that I also tell myself, is that aspect of trying to walk them through the fact that he's always going to be with us. He's always going to be watching over us. Sometimes when I go and visit his resting place, I'm like, I know he's not here. You know, I know his remains are here. Like we led him to rest there, but he's not there. You know, he is out here in the atmosphere. He's in my thoughts. He's in my heart. He's in my breath. He's in my heartbeat. So that's what I have to walk my children through that. You know, I have to remind them constantly because I know that they feel it, but sometimes you need a reminder as well. You know, it's really, really, really hard to come to terms with that. Really difficult. Yeah.
Viewers, it's a cry of a mother. It's a cry of a mother. I'm calling out to the community. We hear and we see news of somebody has been stabbed, but it's because most of the time it's somebody you don't know. It just becomes news. It is when it happens to somebody you know. We've known Irene and the family for many years. It's when it happens to somebody you know that you realize it is a problem, a big one, in any community that we can't ignore. What is this code of silence? Who knows something about Eddie's killer? Because if you do, you could really make it different for this family. It will not bring Eddie back. But the family will have closure that the person who went out cold-blooded took our son, took our Eddie, the fire that lit the community, that person is still hanging out in public, free, and he or she could do this to another family. When do we end the cycle? When do we have no crying families? So it's about time, and I want to really thank you for the strength today to talk, because I know you are not in a place that you wanted to talk. You're doing this for Eddie.
Yeah, definitely.
I would love you to directly talk to your camera there and just 1 minute, say your message to the community of Bristol or outside who might know anything concerning Eddie's killer or Eddie's life.
It's just we still need your help. We just still need you to come forward and tell the police, if you know anything, just talk to them. Let them decide whether it's relevant or not. Let them decide whether it can help to crack this case or not. Keeping it with you is just going to carry a lot of guilt anyway, even for you, if you know something and you're keeping it to yourself. Just come and speak and help us get justice for Eddie. And let's start saving lives by just doing the right thing and just speaking out and not holding on to the silence. That's all I'm asking. Just to remember Eddie. His life mattered to me, to our family, to his brothers, to his cousins, to his aunties, to his grandma, his granddad, his father. He matters to us, and he matters to his friends. Just come out and say what you know or what you've heard, and let us get justice for Eddie.
we've said 6 months have gone.
Yeah.
Is there a plan from the family of what can be done in memorial of Eddie, or something that you think would keep the memory going?
I spoke about this right from the beginning, because obviously, like I said about the response, the time of the response, I was hoping to be able to work alongside the emergency services, the first responders or the call handlers, because we had this conversation about how long it took for them to get there. And also with the call handlers, the way that the protocol that they follow when it comes to stabbings. I think that most of us who have called 999 and say, for instance, somebody's had a cardiac arrest, they tell you what to do. Or there's these questions that they ask and they follow through. But I think they use a script. And I was talking to the medical teams and the emergency services, saying that perhaps there needs to be a change, because these killings have become so normal, these stabbings have become so normal, but then yet the public, like for us to be there, or for the first people who were there, they didn't know what to do. And so I had this conversation with them about maybe adapting the script. When it's a stabbing, they can adapt the script, and instead of asking me the address or the postcode or where they are, or the road name, if I tell you where he is and you ask me whether that person is still alive, are they still breathing, if it's a stabbing, focus on stopping the bleeding, because that's the most important thing. Because it's not a case where you do CPR. It's not the same. It's not the same as a cardiac arrest. It's a different protocol. So can they incorporate a different protocol when it's a stabbing victim? Because then you would be able to tell a member of the public when they call, if they are bleeding, can you take their clothes off? Can you loosen their clothes and find out where they're bleeding from, so that you can focus on stopping the bleeding? Because whether or not, like if they are still alive, if you don't stop the bleeding is what's going to be the cause of death. And if you don't know what to do when somebody is bleeding, even if if you're just like a member of the public, they can talk you through what to do. So I had that conversation with them. Also about the response times. Also about the fact that to scramble like an armed team of police to come to the area took a long time. So it's for us to work with them. I would love to be part of that, have that conversation along the lines of, how quickly they respond, how to instruct somebody who calls and says somebody's been stabbed, what to do. I've had questions asked about like a foundation in Eddie's name, and I'd love to do that. I'd love Eddie's name to make a change. So even though it's not right now, somewhere in the near future, I'd like to be able to do something that is in honor of Eddie, in his memory, and that will be able to reach out to the community, to the youth, perhaps maybe somewhere that they can go, or some kind of program that they can do to educate themselves about the dangers of carrying knives, alongside the acquiring knowledge on how to help someone in case somebody was stabbed. Things like that are the things that I'm looking to do. On a personal level, obviously, when we've had a discussion about a bench for Eddie. Perhaps maybe not in our area. It's more a bench by his resting place where, we can just put a memorial bench for him around the same time where we can put a headstone, because it takes about a year when you're allowed to do that. And so perhaps maybe in the first year of his memorial is what I'd like to do. Get a bench and put it right next to him, because when we go there at the moment, I was even saying the other day that perhaps maybe put astroturf around, because obviously it's really muddy, but we're there all the time. So around him, it's just looking really like it's trodden along, it's trodden on a lot. So kind of trying to make something that I guess preserves, that will protect the area. Yeah, yeah,
Alive, kind of.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, What I can say is, again, as a community, solutions lies with us. Sometimes it's hard for even the system to understand us as a people. I will say this because a lot of these stabbings has been around the black community. And we need to start finding our solutions with our people, with our children. My solution right now is to find that person who's gonna start talking. Don't normalize the silence. How many more families would we talk to like this just because somebody was careless enough to take a life or ruthless in their life that they had to mess a whole family? It can't keep going on. Those are just words we say. We need to have actions. Actions. As much as we're asking the police and everybody else to give us protection, in our yard, we really need to give ourselves protection. That person in this friendship group area, somebody knows something. You are the strength we are looking for. You are the strength we're looking for. And that would make your life far much better because you helped Irene and her family get justice for Eddie. Somebody knows something. Be that somebody. It doesn't have to happen. You don't have to tell people. Talk to the police. You don't have to tell Irene. Talk to the police. Let there be justice for Eddie. As we talk about his memory, how we will make sure that he's remembered, really, Eddie be remembered for who he was, the love of the community. If it's his death which will unite and stop stabs with our people, because it's not just Bristol, it's everywhere you go. There has been funerals after funerals after funerals of young people, forgotten young people if no one is talking about them. We're here to make sure Eddie's name, Eddie's life will not be in vain. Until next time, viewers, be the action the community needs. Thank you.